Hello and welcome to my Woolly PhD. My name is Liz Scarf and this is a weekly vlog about what I am currently learning and making in my anthropology PhD all about wool. I'm so lucky. I'm still so stoked to be doing this. So I missed last week's video. I haven't missed many unintentionally. I think my brain is a bit tired. But sometimes it's really hard to work out if you're in cognitive fatigue because you can't think enough to work it out. Maybe that's one of the diagnostic criteria. I don't know, but I seem to have more brain this week and that's good. And it does make me want to do a video about the researcher's body in the field too, because I think this is very interesting. But it's not this week. This week I've been learning about creative ethnography. because I went to a workshop, an actual in-person people in the room thing, which was very exciting, about creative ethnographic writing. Now, if you haven't heard of it, which I didn't really know too much about it, I come across it a little bit, but the basic idea is that you're actually writing fictional work, so stories really, but they are based on your sort of very in-depth, rich ethnographic data. And there are a few really interesting reasons why people do this and why it can be useful. And the first is that you can publish things in a fictionalized form that you would sometimes not be able to publish as factual due to either restrictions by ethics bodies or risks of litigation. So weirdly, you can sometimes be more honest in creative ethnographic work than in conventional ethnographies. Now, I'm just going to say here, it's a little side note in case you're getting worried about ethical standards and breaching ethics things when I say, you know, there's restrictions by ethics bodies, right? We have to understand the context of these bodies. Just because a formal ethics approval process says something is or isn't ethical, it's not always right. In that many formal ethics processes are actually designed using the standards for medical research. And they don't actually translate quite so well outside of that field. And in anthropology, right, our ethical responsibilities are highly relational and very contextual. So a formal ethics process might say that the best ethical standard is to have everyone sign a paper consent form to participate in your research, which is completely appropriate in medical science research, right? Informed consent documentation, all this kind of thing, right? But for many anthropological projects, it would be weird, bordering and sometimes well into being rude, if you were to do that, and it would create ruptures in your kind of relational ethic and would make the practice actually unethical. So don't worry too much that, oh my God, this is just a way in which people are breaching ethics. It's not. It's actually a way in which people can research and present research outputs actually more ethically sometimes, and can actually protect people more than conventional ethnographic works might protect people. So not just the authors, right, but the people whose lives and stories are being kind of documented through the fictionalization. Anyway, back to the topic at hand. One example of this, of using ethnographic fiction to say things you can't say in academic writing, is a book called Sugar, and it's by Edward Narain and Taryn Phillips. And Taryn's anthropological research is in Fiji, particularly looking at, I think she's a medical anthropologist, looking at the impact of multinational beverage companies on people's health. The book is a murder mystery, really quite interesting. And they chose the genre because different genres afford different, you can make different points and they feature different things, right? A murder mystery features a dead body, generally, or even the absence of a dead body, but there is a dead body somewhere. And this can be very useful if your research actually is about different forms of death and dying and health impacts. And it was super relevant to the data about the health impacts of sugary drinks. It also enables kind of this exploration of various routes of culpability, like who did it, right? Who's responsible? Gives a lot of opportunity to really critique systems and practices, especially commercial practices, that have negative impacts on people's health. But the genre also allows you to throw together people who wouldn't normally share a social context. And in that way, you can really expedite a story by having got composite characters and in situations that are not kind of your everyday situations. It's a really, really interesting book. Another reason it can be useful to fictionalise the work is about your audience. So you can reach a much broader audience through fiction than through academic publishing. Right, so the workshop facilitators were kind of noting that they found that it can be common for those who are in the hard sciences to be quite sceptical about anthropological data, and that they can be more receptive to a narrative form that basically makes the same point about what's going on in a place, but because it's fictionalised, it's not presenting itself as a form of data. Their own kind of critique of what constitutes valid data can be kind of sidestepped. So you can still kind of get your point across. Anyway, so in the workshop, we played around with different ways to think about and translate our data into fiction, and it was so interesting. So I wrote some really fun pieces from the perspective, or my imagined perspective, right, of Rebella the pig. And if you don't know who I'm talking about, I do recommend go back to episode 33 with Rebella. It's the best. She's so cute. Oh my God. Anyway, another great example. I go back at the end of March, and I'm really hoping there's going to be a new batch of pigs, because the pigs I fed and learnt with last time were kind of in the last 2 months of their life, and I'd love to kind of be there for the next batch in their first few months. So there could be piglets. Stay tuned in a couple of month or two, yeah, probably 2. Anyway, we'll see. Okay. Get so distracted by pigs. Okay, another great example, and this might be open access, I'm not entirely sure, but it's called Living with Monsters, Ethnographic Fiction About Real Monsters. It's edited by Yasmin Mushabash and Ilana Gershon, and it's a collection of short stories about real monsters, but they're fictional stories. But the descriptions and the kinds of things these monsters do and whatever will be based on the ethnographic data from these different cultures about these monsters that they live with, right? And one of them is actually, it's called a Mayor's Field Guide to Monsters in Iceland, which is really cool. And there's another one that's quite funny. It's called How to Brand Your Monster. And I mean brand as in like marketing branding, not branding onto the skin. Anyway, it's very good. I haven't read them all. I think there's some really fascinating, really interesting things in that one. And a third reason why people engage, there's probably more than 3 reasons, quite sure there is, but another third reason is that it can be really, it's a form of analytical process actually, so it can be very generative. So by using your data to write fiction, because to write the fiction you've partly got to think what genre and why this genre, what would this genre enable me to tell? What kind of story, what kind of point could I make? And it can help you really understand your data or think about it from a different way. Like I could go, okay, well, I could use murder mystery. How would that work? Where would it fall down? I could use romance. How would that work? Where would it fall down? And so it becomes a lens to think about. The genre becomes a lens to think about the data. But the whole activity, not just thinking about genre, can really help you understand or look at your data from a different perspective and therefore generate sort of new knowledge from that. And I think because often we're dealing with a lot of data and you're not going to use it all, but also like the different ways we do it. I think, and when I think about this cognitive fatigue thing too, right, and the fact that a researcher has their own constraints and conditions in their data work, is like finding different ways to do it that can really freshen up your perspective, or also that just prevent fatigue, right? Because it's, doing something like this, it's a different kind of fun and it's a different kind of thinking activity. It's maybe less rational, less analytical, more creative, in a different way. It's still analytical. Anyway, it was really, really interesting, and I found it quite fun as well. It also helped me notice what are the moments, because when I started thinking about moments in my data my fieldwork experience that kind of really stood out to me as like, these were the extraordinary moments, because, you know, day in, day out, especially farming, like farming is generally very structured life. So it's easy to kind of see the everydayness of it, and therefore easy to see, oh, this is not a thing that happens every day, right? Like finding a sheep on their back. And if you didn't know, sheep can't be on their backs for very long. There's a whole thing about gases in their stomach, and it'll kill them if they stay on their back for too long, which is very unfortunate design, feature of the design. But anyway, these kinds of things that really helped me go, oh, that's right, that was unusual. That was an extraordinary event. Not that it's, whoops, I'm just poking the microphone, sorry. Not that it's unusual for farmers, but it's not an everyday thing that happens. Anyway, so I found that really useful to help me kind of remember and notice the things that weren't every day. Anyway, super interesting, lots of fun. I'm not sure what I'll end up doing with it. But it did remind me to recommend to you again, because I keep recommending this fictional book, which is not ethnographic fiction, but it could have been, 3 Bags Full by Leonie Swan. It's a murder mystery. A flock of sheep investigating the murder of their shepherd. Anyway, the audiobook's done really, really great narration. You know, it's hilarious. It's also quite deep, I think. There's a movie coming out in May. But yeah, if you still haven't listened to that or read that, and you like sheep or anything sheep related, I totally recommend it. It's fun. It's easy listening to. It's a young adult fiction, I think. So it's, yeah, I loved it. Anyway, what have I been making? Well, I feel like I haven't knit this week. And it's almost true. I've done one thing with the knitting. I have done something else that's been very time consuming. But with the knitting, if you've been following along, you know I got a bit messed up with dye batches for a mohair that I was using to knit a cardigan with, in that the new stuff I bought is not the same as the stuff I started with. And so it was really, like, certainly in the sunshine, I could really see it was a lot bluer. And so I had knit this much on the Rotha cardigan. I'm like a centimetre away from splitting for the sleeves. It doesn't look like much on the screen, but it's quite a bit of knitting. Anyway, I'm going to undo it all. I'm pretty sad about that, because I think this is the first time in my life where I think all my raglan increases, I did them all, I didn't miss any. I actually think this is the most perfect knitting I've ever done, and I really like it. And once I got over my mood, it took me about a month, I knit a test swatch where I knit with the new supposedly same colour down the bottom, and I knit with this, and I don't know if it's going to show up here, possibly. Oh, I think it might be. It's actually bluer than the original, and it's noticeable even in this kind of average light. And I just thought, nah, I'm not doing that. But what I also did is I actually happened to have these 2 skeins of mohair, balls of mohair. These are from Rowan, which I tend not to buy so much from larger companies, just because I like to support smaller businesses when I can and when I can afford it. Also, as somebody who, you know, has their own business, but I also just think that small business is really good for the economy. I like the diversity. How about this? This is so gorgeous. I love both of these. Anyway, I just kind of got them randomly at a shop in Melbourne, and I thought, why don't I test what these look like when I knit it together with the red? So that was the rest of this. What have I done? I've tied it all up so it doesn't fall off. Here we go. I mean, it's not much of a swatch because I'm a slacker. But the middle bit, I don't know if this is focusing very well or not. This middle bit is with this one. And then this last bit here is with the sort of plummy purple one. Anyway, I didn't like this, but I love the one in the middle, and it's a bit darker than the original thing, which actually will work well for me. This will look okay on me in terms of colours, but it's a bit brighter than my ideal red, so I think this one will be closer to my ideal red. So I'm going to cry and frog this out because I'm sad to all that work. Sad to let it go, but I'm just trying to find some way to avoid having to pull it apart. No, anyway, I'm going to have to pull it all out. Maybe I can save the neck. We'll see. Yeah, but what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go back to the shop and I'm going to get enough of this, and I'm going to take the tag and I'm going to make sure I get the same dye lot, or buy a whole new set in the right dye lot that are all the same, because I'm not doing this again. Anyway, hopefully learn my lesson. That is the only thing I have knit this week, because I am in fleece prep mode for a big spin. So it's fleece that I got from Cloverleaf Corriedale stud, which is just outside Melbourne. We're super lucky to have an amazing fleece grower, Ronelle, out there. And I actually think I bought this 2 years ago, and I washed it, or 1.5 years ago, I washed it. Oh no, it would be 2 now. It's all washed, and then it's just been sitting in a tub waiting for the next stage, because I've just been like PhDing and busying and stuff. Anyway, I did a few tests with my new drum carder. Again, I thought I was going to show you this week, but the drum carder is currently covered in sewing patterns and stuff, so it's not going to happen. But anyway, I want to card together a mid-brown and a mid-grey, and then put flakes of a dark brown through it. I think it's going to be lovely. In my imagination, it's amazing. I've got to do a little test and see. But what I have been doing all this week in my evening knitting time is opening up locks. I think this is the last bit I have to do in the mid-brown. So basically it's that here's a good example. You pull a lock of the wool off, and you just have to open up one end. And apparently there's little dog brushes that are good for this. I just don't have one. I keep meaning to go get one, but then I just sit down and do it by hand anyway. And I can actually read a book at the same time. Makes my reading a bit slower, but that's okay. And then you can feed it into the machine like this, right? So, but it is quite time consuming. I reckon I've spent 5 evenings, oh, longer maybe, on this. And let me show you what I've got. It's this it's massive. It's huge. It's this huge huge basket of opened up locks now. This Corriedale. Smells amazing. Anyway, I went to visit a friend yesterday, and I thought we're just going to be sitting around chatting. Maybe I'll take over the grey wool and we can sit there and open that up together. So we did that. We did a lot. And then she said, hey, I could do some more of this if you want. So I left it with her. And so she's working on the grey, which is lovely. And then I've just got to do a little bit of the dark brown and be ready to go. Yeah, so I don't know if I'll be showing you any spun fibre next week. Spun wool, maybe. I did do a bunch of tests that I haven't shown you. They are on Instagram, but they're not to hand, maybe another week. One thing that did happen though is with this big basket on my lap, right? And like many spinners, I do love the smell of sheepy wool. And if you follow along on Instagram, you will see that I started the hashtag fleece sniffer. I think I'm the only one using it, but you know, that's okay. This made me, you know, you go to smell it and then I thought, oh, you could just like put your whole face in this. It's really quite lovely. It's sticking to my lipstick. But it made me think of Breadface. Have you seen Breadface? She's been around for years. It's this young woman who does a video of smushing her face into different kinds of baked products. It's hysterical. She has like over 1.5 million followers though on Instagram. It's wild. And I'm wondering if fleece sniffing might similarly take off. What do you think? Is it kinky enough? Which is probably not. Anyway, that is what I have been making this week, is opened locks for it should be a sweater spin. I think I've probably got about 300 grams of this. I've still got to weigh it up once I finish. 300 grams of the other, probably, maybe 100 grams. I've still got to work out the ratio of the flex. So I think I'll be, between 600 and 800 grams of spun fibre in the end, which I think is enough to do a sweater with. Yeah, anyway, that's what I've been doing. Thanks for watching. As always, love to hear your comments on any of the above or whatever else you're thinking about wool or spinning or sheep or making stuff or, studies. Yeah. Thanks for watching. See you next week. Bye.